Hi, I'm Jessica Sterling, the portrait and event photographer based here in Los Angeles, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about depth of field. Dun dun dun. What the heck does depth of field mean? Like what field? Field like where you play hockey? I found out there's this guy named George Lindsay Johnson who wrote about it in 1909, and it seems like he was the first guy to use that term, possibly. The first thing, it was called depth of focus, and that had to do with, they had these, the big old cameras they used to have back in the day. They had this thing that they would move back and forth, so that had to do with focusing. It's actually kind of the same as depth of field, which is the object out in the field moving. So depth of field, just in a nutshell, means how far from the camera to the person you're photographing is in focus. As you can see, I'm out of focus. As you can see, hopefully, I'm in focus. The depth of how much is it while I'm still in focus is the depth of field. The aperture is a little hole inside of the lens. So, it has these numbers here. Those are the aperture markings. It says 1.42, 2.84, 5.6. Aperture is the same thing as f-stop, FYI. My lens has this little thingy that locks it. It's like the inside of the lens is getting smaller and bigger. So the smaller the aperture, the higher the number. It says f16, and then I make it as large as it'll go, and it's 1.4. For whatever scientific reason, the depth of field is very small. That means very little is going to be in focus. And something like f16, smaller hole, that means that more is going to be in focus. It's a creative choice, it's a practical choice. This is on a need-to-know basis. What the heck do you need to know about this thing, depth of field? First of all, if you're shooting portraits, you probably want certain parts of the person to be in focus. So how much you want to be in focus is important for depth of field. And how much is in focus is a creative choice. But you'll find that when you're photographing people that they tend to move closer and further away from the camera a little bit. So if your aperture is set too big, which is too low of a number, it's opposite land, right? Then you might get some pictures that are out of focus and some pictures that are in focus. So that's something you need to watch. So you might pick an aperture that's kind of in the middle somewhere, like 5.6 or something else, depending on your choice. If you have a lens that can go really low and have a very big opening, like 1.4 or something like that, which is awesome, but keep in mind that the little bit that's in focus is not that much maybe, and if the person moves you might get some out of focus pictures. Sometimes you may want to have some of the background out of focus and the person you're photographing in focus, and that's where depth of field comes into play. Every lens is a little different, so you'll need to test your lens, but generally speaking, lower numbers have more stuff out of focus and less stuff in focus. If you have a lens that goes to like 2.8 or 1.4 or 1.1 or whatever, that means that very little is going to be in focus and most of it's going to be out of focus, which can be super awesome because you can have something where the person is stepping out of the mist. Or conversely, in architecture, for instance, you may want something where the picture is super sharp, all the way from the back of the room, all the way to the front of the room. And that's where you want a higher number, a smaller aperture. I have an architectural lens that I use, by the way, that's sharpest at f9. Why? I don't know, but it is. So when I shoot architecture, that's what I shoot it at, f9. It has to be an f9. The question is how much do you want to have in focus in your picture? And when you're doing a group photo, for example, you probably want the people in the back and the people in the front, if you have two rows of people, or it's kind of curved. You want people to all be in focus. If your depth of field is too small, then the person in the back is going to be out of focus, or the person in the front is going to be out of focus, or maybe that's just how it's going to be in the picture, and you have to line everybody up. So you probably want a smaller aperture and a larger number, like f5.6, f11, f22, f875, so that way everything is in focus. Or if you have like a picture where people are dancing or moving and you have like a really tiny depth of field, they're going to be moving in and out of focus, so your pictures are going to look kind of like not so great all the time. My point is that depth of field, aperture, f-stop, it's just a tool. And if you kind of hopefully get anything out of this video, It's that it's your tool. Hopefully that's helpful. Be sure to like, subscribe, and get out there and capture your own. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching.